Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening all around the world. We welcome you to our third series of Women in Gastroenterology, sponsored by the World Gastroenterology Organization. My name is Anita Afzali. I'm a professor of medicine and the executive vice chair of the Department of Internal Medicine, as well as the associate chief medical officer at the University of Cincinnati in Cincinnati, Ohio, United States. I welcome all of you for another really inclusive discussion, dialogue among friends and colleagues. Thank you so much for joining us all around the world. I'd like to begin with thanking the WGO. This is truly an amazing global inclusive community, and the efforts to foster and promote involvement and advancement of women in medicine is just incredible to see this initiative from the WGO. This is an opportunity for us to empower and learn from one another within the GI global community. So thank you to the WGO for hosting the third series. I am joined today, and I have the honor of serving as the moderator for our panelists and speakers. I'm joined today by friends and colleagues from all around the world. Joining me are Dr. Selma Barakat from Sudan, Professor Claudia De Felipe from Chile, Dr. Nancy Fanous from Egypt, Professor Rina Sadhu from the UK, and our male ally and sponsor and friend, Professor Mohammed El Qassas from Egypt. What we're going to do is a format for those who are new to these webinar series. This is a unique format to allow a 5-minute conversation and presentation from each of our speakers and panelists, followed by a panelist discussion. And this is where I really hope we can be as interactive and engaging as possible with one another all around the world. Please make sure to insert your questions into the chat box, so that way I can address these questions with each of our panelists respectively. We will have short panel sessions following each of the presentations. Again, we're looking forward to today's session to really cover and feature specifically women in leadership along with our guest ally. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and start with our first speaker, and then to follow, we will again have our panelists to follow with that. So our first speaker is Professor Rina Sadhu. And Professor Sadhu will be presenting, and again, she's from the UK, and she's going to present and share with us her thoughts on why mentorship. Why do we as women in gastroenterology need this, and how do we pursue this? And so from here, Rina, welcome.
Thank you, Anita, and thank you to the WGO. I'm delighted to be part of this Women in GI webinar series. Next slide, please. So why mentorship? Well, there are different models that are used, such as the Oscar or G-STAR models. Both of these stress that communication is key, and it's important that both the mentor and mentee identify a clear purpose and goals to ensure a successful mentoring relationship. Now, many people may choose mentorship to perhaps develop leadership skills, education and training, or to step into research and academia, or some may just want the mentor to manage a career transition. So a mentor has got lots of benefits. They help you in your professional development. They help you identify a broader perspective on career options that may not be evident to you. They also open doors by introducing you to collaborators or allies for research collaborations or sponsor support. They challenge you and they help you identify gaps in your skills and knowledge, which then you can make steps to overcome. They also help you define and realize your potential, and they may encourage you to embark on roles that you may find daunting, such as management or leadership roles. They also provide clarity and guidance when you're at crossroads. Whilst they might not give you the answer, they help you reach the answer yourself. They're a good listening ear and increase your confidence, and you look to them as a role model and for objective views. And when you're mentored, you yourself develop mentoring and coaching skills. Next slide, please. So what's my story? So I'm originally from Malaysia, and I got a scholarship to do medicine in Ireland. I've had 2 mentors in my life, my dad and a male mentor during research. My dad used to drive me to school, and he taught me wise words. When you reach a crossroad and you don't know the answer, take time and the correct answer will come to you. And I still cherish this to this day. During research, I had a male mentor. He gave me insight to confront my weaknesses. He also pushed me forwards for opportunities that was not clearly obvious to me that I thought I would never apply for. He also challenged me and ensured I had a 3-year plan and a 5-year plan. And with that, and him pushing me forward, I applied for the BSG Hopkins Endoscopy Prize and was the first female gastroenterologist to have ever won this in the UK. And with him pushing me forward, I then became a national and international small bowel expert. Next slide, please. But it's important that you also give back. When you provide mentorship, you have a positive influence on your younger colleagues. You transfer soft skills, and it also ensures that you keep yourself up to date, basically keeping you on your toes. When you are seen as a role model, it certainly has a positive influence on your self-confidence and self-assurance. It also allows you to reflect, and reverse mentoring is definitely refreshing. Next slide, please. I've had several mentees to date, and there are 3 important principles that I hold important. There's the technical aspect, which we all do. You transfer skills it might be during clinic or when you are doing an endoscopy list. You provide constructive feedback to help the junior overcome the hurdles, which they might see as huge to them. Importantly, as a female small bowel endoscopist, I try and encourage them that endoscopy is not just for males. And then there's professionally. It's important to identify key wins that are specific to that individual that you're mentoring. And this might be putting them forward for being a speaker or being a trainer at educational and training events, or for research collaborations that you can push them forward. But pastorally is probably the most important. It's important that they self-reflect and you ask them important questions and giving them good feedback. And I also feel that bringing up my own less good experiences helps make them realize that if I'm an ordinary person, I can do it, so can they. Next slide, please. So my key takeaway messages, ladies and gentlemen, is whatever stage of career you're at, identify a mentor, and you will notice the big change and personal benefits. If you don't have one, think of a 3-year and a 5-year plan. And remember, it's rewarding to give back. So become a mentor yourself and don't be afraid to challenge yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Rena, for sharing your feedback and your wise words and experience with us. At this time, I welcome all of my friends and panelists to go ahead and turn on your camera and join us. I will separately introduce each of our respective panelists when they give their presentation. And at this time, I also welcome everyone who has joined us online to please, again, ensure that this is an interactive dialogue. So use that Q&A box and put in your questions so we could address this with our fabulous panelists. So Rena, you discussed the value and the importance of mentorship, your father being one of them and your research mentor being another. These sound like spectacular mentors indeed. The question is, how do we approach it when mentoring goes bad? How can we end that relationship professionally and amicably?
Thanks, Anita. That's a tricky situation, particularly if the mentor and mentee work in the same department. I think first and foremost, it's important that the mentor and mentee go back to the original goals that they had set and see if there's a different path they can take to try and achieve those goals. If that is not really working out, it's important that both end the relationship amicably, but it's also important that the mentor then signpost the mentee to an alternative mentor that might be better suited for them professionally and also in terms of their personality. And at this point, it's also important that the mentor does some self-reflection to ensure that these same issues don't become a problem at the next relationship.
I appreciate that. Having the crucial conversations, having a professional conversation, and identifying alternatives. Well said. Dr. Selma, welcome. If I could ask you the next question that's coming through for us, what about the traits and behaviors that perhaps should be avoided in a mentor so we don't have to perhaps end the relationship, that mentee-mentor relationship? What sort of traits should be avoided?
Thank you for asking me to join first this webinar. I am really honored to be part of the group. I think there are a few things that the mentor should avoid. One of them is being too critical. So they should not criticize too much the mentees, as this may demoralize them. It's also important to avoid being unavailable. They should be approachable by the mentees so that if they need any help. Another important thing I think they should avoid is avoiding taking over or imposing their own values or ideas. They should let the mentee make the shots, take the decisions, and go through it all. Even if they fail, they learn from this. So I think there are some important things they should avoid, and it's important also to put boundaries. So there should be mutual respect, but there should be boundaries known to both.
Great pointers, Dr. Selma, and I appreciate that. And maybe at this point, if I could bring the next question to Professor Claudia, asking, and as Selma reminded us, this is a time when we need to put boundaries and better define and recognize that this is about the mentees, not about the mentor arena. You very nicely emphasize that to us as well. The question, Claudia, comes to yourself in a sense of how do we make sure we're all busy? We have tons going on and we don't want to make it about us, but sometimes it's just on our time, on our schedule, perhaps as the mentor. How do we make sure that we're appropriately optimizing the time, either from a mentee perspective or a mentor perspective?
Well, hello, hi everyone. It's a pleasure also to be here. But I think it's very important to have time. Probably mentors and mentees, we are very busy. And then I think it's important to have an agenda, for example, and to schedule conversations. I think also the mentee has to recognize his needs and communicate them as clearly as possible to the mentor so we can establish some goals. And probably plan these conversations to try to focus on relevant issues and not in other things that are not important. And also, even if we can plan these conversations, I think they have to be flexible and adaptable, because the most important thing for me, to be a good mentor is to be available for the mentee, to be analytical, and also to be an active listener. So I think they have these points.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Claudia. And I appreciate those pointers. I think it's a good reminder for all of us that we should treat this relationship in a very organized and structured approach, and really being able to, quite frankly, have an agenda, be able to have a purpose for each of these meetings and structure it exactly as you've laid out. So again, to all of our listeners, please make sure to keep those Q&A box active. Place your questions in. And again, we want this to be as interactive. We're learning together and growing together. So at this point, I welcome our next speaker. Our speaker, Dr. Selma Barakat, is from Sudan. And what she's going to present on is how do we increase our market value? And let's take a step back and say, what do we mean by the market value? So Selma, please walk us through this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I really am honored to be asked by the WGO to present today in this Women in GI webinar series. It lifts us up to know that we are recognized all over the world. So just to say the definition of market value, I found several definitions, but I think for our purpose, the market value is defined as your perceived worth of your personal skills, experiences, and what you contribute to the job market. Next slide. So there are several factors that can impact market value, and these include your personal factors, which include your skills, your experiences, what education you had, the reputation you have while you're providing your patient care, etc. But there are other factors that can impact market value. These include industry demand, also where you are working, so geographical location can impact this, and also your network of professionals who can open opportunities for you. So there are several factors which can impact your market value generally. So next slide. how do you know your market value? So to know your market value, I think it's very important to reflect on your general skills, what you know and what you achieved during your career, and also how you participate in the community in gastroenterology, whether in conferences, publications, if you had any leadership roles, mentorship roles, and so on. So you reflect on what you have acquired through the years. Also, you need to research and explore the benchmark of the job market. So what's out there? How are they appreciating the skills of people same as you, and how much they are appreciated, how much they are paid? And sometimes asking mentors and colleagues around you can give you an input on your value as an endoscopist or as a professional in your field. But even knowing your professional skills and your market value is not enough. You should always aim to increase your market value. And there are several ways to increase your market value. One of them is just continuously learning, continuously updating your skills, or even learning new skills, which could be more applicable, giving you more chances in a specific situation. Also, you can increase your market value by having a voice, participating in public speaking or online presence, or participating in general research or publications, and collaborating with other multidisciplinary teams. This will increase your market value. And you should learn to negotiate for what you deserve. And part of increasing your market value is also advocating for other female colleagues who will probably need you to advocate for them, to advocate for equality and empower them as well as empower yourself. So my general, next slide, please. My general takeaway messages would be, uh, you you should know your self-worth, and you should know that probably you are as good and maybe even better than many people out, many professionals out there. And you should learn to demand your rightful status and keep growing. And as I said, you need to know how to empower yourself and others in your organization, especially other female colleagues. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Salma. And at this point, I welcome my friends and panelists back all on video. And to all those listening, please keep that Q&A box active. We want this as engaging as possible. So Salma, I'm going to start with yourself, and thank you for sharing this. I think far too often there's a lot of factors that influences our ability to comfortably define our market value. And one of them, I would say, are cultural factors. What, if any, would you say has the impact of cultural factors in helping us define our market value?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of cultural values that impact your market value, and it depends on where you are, what the culture you are working in. And it's very important to know and get acquainted with the culture around you, the language around you, and so on. So there are several cultural factors that does impact, including gender bias, patient preference, because I know some cultures, for example, females may want a female colonoscopist. So this is important. So you have to know the cultural norms and grow within that and be adaptable. And this will increase your value according to what you do in that culture area. So it's very important to know the cultural norm around you and to be adaptable in that area.
I appreciate that. That's excellent reminders for us to know our culture, know what are some of these aspects, identify it, discuss it, and even acknowledge it, that sometimes this is a cultural, this is not a me personal. I really appreciate that. Rena, what about yourself? How and where should we start in regards to defining it, right? That is so overwhelming. How should one even start? Where do we start with defining?
I think that's difficult, and I think we all don't do that enough. I think first and foremost, it's important to stop and actually recognize your own achievements and successes. And one good way of doing this is actually updating your CV. And then you'll realize of all the achievements and accolades that, it's written down in paper and it's visible. And then Salma's also mentioned about benchmarking. So it's useful to benchmark yourself against your peers. That will then tell you where your market value is. And then I think with that, I would say that there's three principles that are really important. So there's some degree of self-validation, which is important, and that's important for your well-being. Be self-assured, and that will help your self-confidence. And with these three principles, you can then position yourself strategically to then, explore an improved market value. And I think in that journey, as Salma's already mentioned, you may also want to choose a mentor to help you position yourself.
So practical and helpful. Thank you, Rena. And I appreciate that. For all those online, I have my little CV on my desktop. So anytime I get some invitation or something, I immediately enter it on my CV. So you're not having to think back what you did. Great pointer, Rena. Nancy, welcome, my friend. So
hello.
I'll bring the next question to yourself. Selma very nicely reminded us what is market value and how do you approach it. Rena helped remind us to start. Where do you start? And so now the question comes to you that I'm getting here is, how do we validate it? Are we coming up with a market value that's maybe totally off?
Let me share with you something that I think that the most important thing is to know where your position is, to determine your unique value proposition. Because if you know where are your strengths, where are the points of uniqueness that you have, then at that point, then you can validate yourself, and then you can validate your market value. The second thing is to set priorities, because you cannot do everything at one time. So I think making a plan for yourself is very important. Know what's the next step. Put your plan like a 5-year plan or a 3-year plan. You're hearing me? Yeah. Okay. So I think that this would be very important, and to continue to do branding for yourself. Then I think at that point you'll be able to validate your market value.
Very well said. Thank you, Nancy. And what a great segue to your talk. And so at this point, and keep these questions coming, I'll keep on raising them throughout our panelists. At this point, I welcome Dr. Nancy Fanous. She is joining us from Egypt. And Dr. Nancy is going to present on the imposter phenomenon. How do we overcome it? And I love it. The secret thoughts of a successful woman. Nancy, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, and thank you, WGO, for asking me to be part of this wonderful webinar. So today I would like to share with you some thoughts successful women have, because like everybody, we may look strong, we may look confident from the outside, but like anybody, we have fears, we have doubts. So what is imposter phenomenon? And how to deal with it. Imposter phenomenon actually is described as self-doubt of intellect, skills, or accomplishments, especially among high-achieving individuals, despite the evidence of success, that they always question themselves, am I good enough? Actually, it is common among medical professionals due to high personal expectations and seeking perfectionism, especially during tough periods of career transition. And they say that nearly 1 in 4 physicians may report intense experiences with it throughout their career, and this occurs in males and in females as well. Next slide, please. So there are 5 types of characters or of personalities that are more liable to get these feelings of imposters. The perfectionist, the one who wants to do everything the very, very right way, the expert who has fears of inadequacy, the super person who takes too many tasks, the natural genius, the one who is a very, very rapidly learning, and then if he takes a little more time to learn, or if he makes a fault, then he feels the imposter feelings, and the soloist, the one who thinks that he should not ask help from others. Next slide, please. So imposter feelings or imposter phenomenon is closely related to some other things like unrealistic expectations. Putting unrealistic expectations actually sometimes may lead to frustrations and to feelings of inadequacy. Work-life balance, the thing that we all try to do and try to seek. If you are not keeping a good work-life balance, then you are more liable to feeling the imposter feelings. Burnout. This is a very, very common thing among medical professions. You have feelings of uncertainty. You want to take too many tasks. And when you take too many tasks, then you get burnt out. And when you are burnt out, you feel more frustrated, or you may feel imposter feelings. The last thing is imposter phenomenon and leadership, which is very important, because being a leader, it is very important to spot these feelings within your trainees and try to help them overcome that. Next slide, please. So how to overcome imposter phenomenon? I think the very important thing, and the thing that we all need to do, is to pause, to stop at the time and to think, to reconsider, to reassess the evidence. If you have doubts about your competency, then think about the evidence that I am competent versus the evidence that I'm inadequate. And I'm sure you will find that you are competent enough. Focus on your strengths and accomplishments, as my friends and colleagues just highlighted, and then refocus on the values that you would like to have, the values in life, values in your profession. Then try to reframe your thoughts and think in a positive manner. And be sure to accept constructive criticism from trusted peers, and of course, search for a mentor. It's very important. Next slide, please. So in a fast-changing environment like ours, always remember that no one is an expert all the time. If you are an expert today, then tomorrow you will be a learner, because there's something new to learn. If you have doubts, speak them out. You are not alone. We all feel these feelings at one point or another. Practice self-compassion. Be kind to yourself. Change your mindset and celebrate your success. Next slide, please. And always remember that our real impact is not only based on titles and recognition, but it is based on how we cultivate kindness and enhance other people's lives, even in simple ways that are unrelated to our formal roles. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nancy. What spectacular pointers for all of us. And at this point, I welcome all of my friends to come back and keep using that Q&A box for all our listeners, and I will take these questions as they come. So Nancy, I'm going to start with yourself. And as we all know, everyone on this call, that this webinar series is featuring women leaders and our male ally leader. And so Nancy, for yourself, what impact early on or even currently has this imposter phenomenon had on you directly?
Yes, actually, we all, I'm sure that we all faced and we all felt those feelings at a point or another during our careers in different intensities, maybe in a mild way, maybe in a very severe way. But however, yes, of course, at one point of my career, I had a pause of like 2 years I was working with a low profile because I had some issues, and I had that feeling of that I'm not ready to push hard in that career, you know. And then, but well, what helped me a lot is having a mentor, and this is very important, because at one point you need someone just to help you see what you are not seeing in yourself. Help you point out the areas of strength, and to try to push you on the right way. And this is what happened. And then that was very important to me. So yes, having a mentor and having time to think is very, really important. And I have experienced this, and I hope that everybody, even he has doubts, speak them out. just don't keep those feelings inside, these doubts. Just speak them out to trusted colleagues or to a mentor.
Yeah, thank you for the assurance that it's normal. It's a normal feeling, and
Yes.
we seek mentorship. And thank you for sharing the authenticity of your words
Thank
as
you.
well. I'm going to take the next question that's coming through here. And Dr. Mohammed, this is directed to you. And the question is, this imposter phenomenon that we keep talking about for women, do men also experience this?
Okay, thanks, Anita, for the question. Initially, the imposter phenomenon assumed to be mainly a female experience. But recently, many studies and reports have examined the link between gender and the imposter phenomena. And the results, however, have been equivocal. While some studies didn't find any gender differences in the imposter phenomena among doctors and academia, others found that women suffer more from imposter feelings than men do. But by the end, yes, imposter phenomena for sure exists among men.
That's a good reminder. So it's a shared, it's irrespective to gender. Everyone feels that we all need to be comfortable talking about it. And remember, there's a difference between imposter phenomenon and basic humility, recognizing we are always constantly learning and growing. Dr. Claudia, I'm going to take this to yourself. Being the first female president of the Chilean Gastroenterology Society, which is incredible. I guess the question that's coming here is, did you experience a little bit of this imposter phenomenon when you applied or were nominated and or accepted this significant role?
Thank you for the question. Yes, certainly, like many people, I felt the imposter phenomenon. Well, when some colleagues asked me to be the next president of the Chilean Gastroenterology Society, well, my thoughts were, I'm prepared to this, or I have the skills. Initially, I feel very scared, and especially I felt the fear to fail, so to do my job worse than men. But after being in this position for more than 1 year, I know that really I'm capable, I have the skills, and we have organized a lot of activities like men, so we can do it really. That's not a problem.
Wonderfully shared, Claudia. And I think this is a constant reminder that we don't need to dim our own lights or minimize ourselves, and we need to continue on with the confidence because we're well prepared. And so this is a great segue to your conversation with us of how do we advance women in leadership. And so Dr. Claudia De Felipe is joining us from Chile. Claudia, welcome.
Well, thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, where you are. And first of all, I want to thank WGO for the opportunity to participate in this webinar. It's really a great honor for me. And now I'm going to talk about advance ourselves into leadership. Well, we know that gastroenterology has been a male-dominated field. There are some data from the United States that in 2019, only 19% of gastroenterologists were female. And even if half of the medical students are women, only 30% of GI fellowships are females. So in that sense, women are underrepresented at all levels of leadership. In academics, we have less full professors or less associate professors, like department chairs of gastroenterology, and also like presidents of scientific societies. So how we can change this, and these are my thoughts. First of all, I think it's very important to get involved in an area of interest. For example, be part of a committee in your universities and your hospitals to gain leadership experience and to establish a national reputation. Please, talk in conference, talk in meetings, show your work, show what you're doing. Second, I think it's very important to identify potential leaders early in their career and to help them with mentorship and with sponsors. One of the most important things for me is to saying yes to opportunities, because saying yes is the best way to learn and to grow. You don't need to be, I think, 100% qualified to apply for a position. You can gain additional skills once you are in this position, and you need to recognize that if you were not qualified, they wouldn't have offered you the opportunity. Also, I think it's important to have a personal female leadership style, not look, we not look like men. We have some soft skills like teamwork, communicational skills, empathy. Please focus on alliance, men alliance, and women alliance, support women professional organizations. And becoming a leader is something that you can do to advance in your career. And I think one of the most important things is not to feel guilty, not feel guilty with your family, your parents, your partners, etc., because you can do it. And it's very important to try to balance your personal life and your professional life. So like as message to take at home, I think we need to work to be in a leadership position in gastroenterology. This is a journey. We need to be part of a committee, participate in meetings, lectures, to be recognized as an outstanding physician. Second, it's very important to say yes to opportunities. Don't be scared. And finally, leadership is not only good for women in the sense you can influence and motivate other colleagues, but also it's very important for our organization to have gender parity and for patients. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Claudia, for your wise words and really reminding us some key highlights and pointers. I'm going to take the first question to yourself, and I welcome our other panelists to join and keep those questions coming in the Q&A box. So, Dr. Claudia, what is the current state of affairs and what's the current situation in Latin America? I know that yourself serving as the first female president, that's a significant role, and it's just so wonderful to see what's happening in the rest of Latin America.
Well, thank you for the question. First of all, fortunately, in Latin America, we are in a very good situation. In Latin America, there are a lot of women participating in gastroenterology, in endoscopy, in hepatology. For example, in my society, approximately 30% of the members are women. So I think that fortunately, in Latin America, we're in a good situation. The half of our GI fellowships in my hospital are women. So this is challenging. I think are good news.
Well, that is beautiful. You've reached critical mass, and anything beyond this is just equity and everything that we want to see and continue to grow. And I think that this is exactly why we have these conversations, so we can learn from each other and get us to all reach this. So now I'm going to bring this to all of our panelists with the next question that I'm seeing here, which is basically, it's a thought-provoking question. I'm going to have each of you answer this. Do we think that perhaps the barriers or the limitations or challenges for the advancement of women in these leadership positions, is it barriers and challenges because of our own perspectives and attitudes? Is it because of the male's perspective and attitudes? Where is this originating from? And Selma, I'll take this first to yourself, and then I'm going to go down the panel.
Thank you again. I think it's probably both. But from where I come from, I don't think we had this in Sudan. So we always had opportunities as equal as the other male doctors. I was a director for a while. We always had this opportunity. We can advance our skills. We have equal pay. And I think we are the ones who step back because as said before, the feeling maybe because you have other commitments or you're a mother or so on. But I think I was lucky to be in a part of the world where we have equal opportunities. If you don't take it, it's just because of you don't want it, not because of your male colleagues.
Wow, that is so wonderful. And I'm envious. In the United States, we do not have equal pay. So Dr. Nancy, what about yourself? What do you think the perspective is for advancement of leadership?
Yeah, Yeah, I agree. I agree with Salma, because in Egypt also we have the same situation. We are equally paid, and we get almost similar opportunities. Yes. So actually, it's combination of two things, I think. The first thing is the limitations that we women put for ourselves, feeling that we will not be able to do that. And the second thing is the social commitments and the personal also commitments that are more with females, like the family and the kids. So sometimes some females they had to take like some time away from work to take care of the kids, which is very normal. So this makes them behind a little bit. But actually, I think it's not one factor, and it's different from one place to another and from person to another.
Thank you. It's certainly taking into consideration that third shift, that third job after our morning job and the evening job and all the rest. So,
Yeah.
Dr. Mohammed, what about yourself? What's your perspective?
Firstly, we have all to acknowledge the 6 disparities persist in academic GI community with regard to leadership positions, GI subspecialties, and even scholarly productivity, as measured by many indices like the overall research output and the H-index. Such relatively lower research productivity, of course, among other various structural obstacles, can in turn prevent more women from progressing to leadership positions, thereby maybe exacerbating the under-representation. But let me confirm the role again of male ally, and I would say that allyship means intentionally collaborating, supporting, and actively working to dismantle systemic inequities and using privileges to uplift those who need it. I have always recommended the investment in equity and inclusivity as a tool to overcome such defects.
Indeed, you have. And what perfect timing to talk about allyship right now. So Dr. Mohammed is joining us from Egypt. He's a professor of medicine and gastroenterology. And so he will present on how to be a strong male ally. And again, really noting that we are taking this journey together, males, females alike. So welcome, Dr. Mohammed.
Thanks, Anita, for the presentation. I'm really pleased to be part of this activity by WGO. So yes, my first slide. Yes, male allies can make a significant impact in promoting gender equality and women's leadership. It's not just about being a good guy or doing the right thing. Male allyship is essential for creating more diverse, inclusive, and effective workplace. Of course, organizations with diverse leadership teams always report higher success and greater innovation than less diverse organizations. But despite this fact, women continue to be underrepresented in leadership positions in many fields, including healthcare, and for sure, GI specialty is not an exception for that. This is where male allies can step and make a difference. So what does male allyship practically look like? First, you have to listen and learn. Take the time to listen to women's experiences and perspectives and educate yourself about the unique challenges they face. This could mean gain more knowledge about gender issues, attending maybe diversity and inclusion trainings, or simply having open and honest conversations with your female colleagues. Speak up, use your voice and influence to advocate for gender equality and women's leadership. This could mean challenging sexist language or behavior in your workplace, recommending qualified women for leadership positions, or advocating for policies that support work-life balance. Be accountable. Hold yourself and other men accountable for creating more inclusive workplace. This could mean calling out bias or discrimination when you see it, setting goals for gender diversity on your team, or actively seeking out and mentoring women leaders. But male allyship is not just good for the work, it's also the right damn thing to do. When men support women's leadership, they are creating a more just and equitable society. They are also modeling positive behavior for the future generations and creating a world where everyone can thrive regardless of their gender and their beliefs. Next, please. So my call to action is simple to you, male identifying people who have inherent privileges. Be an ally, be a real ally. Use your power and influence to support women's leadership out loud and help create a more diverse, inclusive, and effective workplace for us all. And finally, together, we can change the world of GI community. Thank you.
Wonderfully said, Dr. Mohammed. And at this point, I welcome our panelists and keep those questions coming in that Q&A box. So I'll start with yourself in a sense of maybe perhaps just because I want to hear more of your strong, empowering words of a reminder to the global community. So certainly we know that gender equality is not just a female issue. There's the social, the economic, patient outcomes, and all of the rest. But what do you think with this perspective in the sense of having these forums and sessions and saying gender equality, let's make it a woman thing? What's your perspective of our approach to this?
Yes. It is essential to have men and women working together to create a dynamic and inclusive workplace culture. However, it is also crucial to acknowledge that women still face significant challenges in the workplace, and men are responsible for being allies in the fight for gender equality. Male allies can actively support women in their networks, champion pro-women policies, and work towards creating a more equitable workplace. But being an ally is more than paying lip service to the cause. It requires a genuine commitment to listening to women's experiences and needs, asking how you can support them, and taking action to address such systemic inequalities.
Well said. And thank you so much for being such an authentic ally, friend, and colleague, mentor, and sponsor to many. Really appreciate your words. So now I'm going to ask each of our female panelists to help us define from your perspective. And Dr. Nancy, I'll start with yourself. What's your perspective of what does allyship mean to you, particularly in the theme of women in leadership?
Well, I think male allies are the partners of success, because when you play in a team, when the team wins, everybody wins. So it's just a partnership, and supporting each other back is actually it keeps a healthy work environment.
Well said. Well said. I love that partnership for success. Dr. Selma, what about yourself? What does allyship mean to you? And you're on mute, my friend.
So I think allyship means probably a supportive and empathetic relationship. And I probably want an ally who sees me as an equal, and we can support each other, I think. Yeah.
I like that. Dr. Claudia, what about yourself? What does allyship mean to you?
Well, for me, men allies are colleagues that really make actions and not only words to encourage the participation of women in different activities, in investigation, in Congress, and scientific activities. And there are persons who motivate us and help us to grow in our career. And finally, I think it's very important that they have to be persons that really have to understand that the reality of their female colleagues' problem is sometimes different than their own reality. So we need their help.
Well said. I'm going to, at this point, continue to welcome all of our listeners to keep those questions coming. We've gotten some delayed questions that I'm going to bring to all of our panelists. We have a few more minutes before closing or the end of our session. So I'll just start with the top, with additional question that just came in. What strategy can we adopt as individuals to be able to introduce ourselves to the global market? We spoke about market value. Selma, you really were able to emphasize that. And so what strategies can we take to take ourselves away from our local, regional, national and get global, the whole purpose of WGO? So maybe Dr. Selma, I'll have you start us off with that.
I think it's getting involved with public speaking, or getting recognized in the multimedia, or attending conferences, presenting in conferences, networking with other people from other countries. That's how they get to know you and know what you can do and your value. I think that's important.
Well said. Mohammed, did you have an answer to that as far as being able to put yourself out there in the global front?
I think it's maybe something different from this talks about gender. It could be through research, through being visible to everyone, through participation in activities like that one. This is the most important thing that will introduce to the global community.
Well said. Okay. And that's a good reminder for all of us that I have a suggestion, which is have your elevator pitch ready. Be ready to know what you want, what your ask is, how do you want to get out there? And I practice and rehearse my elevator pitch before I go to a big conference or anything. So that way people know what I'm looking for as my next step or my next interest, especially for leadership. Nancy, I'm going to take this next question to yourself in a sense of, we talked about the imposter phenomenon being common, and we also were reminded it's not just a female issue, if you will, but it's really gender neutral, if you will.
Yeah.
Now the question here is, what if it's too much of that imposter phenomenon? What if someone's feeling it too much? Should they be seeking counseling or coaching or something else to help them overcome these thoughts?
Yes, as I said, that we all faced some sort of imposter feelings at one point of our career, but when they are too excessive, when they are preventing you from taking your chances or opportunities, from advancing in your career, then you have to seek for, first, as we said, first a mentor, but sometimes you need to go to a higher level and to seek for assistance from a coach or from a psychiatrist if you have some sort of intense limitations. So yes, that's very important.
Well said. And thank you for that reminder. And again, for all of our listeners, this is a common feeling. So you're not uncommon. No one's going to find out that you don't deserve to be where you are. Please believe in yourself. And I really believe, Nancy, your presentation, and quite frankly, everyone's words and their authenticity of sharing and delivering this message, that believe in yourself, because as Claudia, you said, there's a reason you were asked or offered a position. It was because others believe in you as well. So Claudia, do you have a different perspective as far as overcoming the imposter phenomenon in recognizing that maybe it might be a little bit too much?
I think for me, it's not a different point of view, but probably to talk with other ones and to communicate your fears, to share your emotions. Talking about the imposter phenomenon is important, because how you say, a lot of people, a lot of doctors, men and women, feel this imposter phenomenon during their career. And if you talk that, you're going to know that a lot of people suffer the same thing.
Well said. That's a good reminder. And we're getting another reminder here in the Q&A box to really be able to take advantage of the initiatives and resources out there. If you don't have or are not taking advantage of some of these programs, I think this is a good welcome and opportunity for all of us to know that there's mentorship programs. The WGO, as an example, through the Train the Trainers and other opportunities where you could get involved, engaged at that global front, and then also learn that you're actually really skillful and that people want to learn from you and grow with you. And so this is, again, a reminder, and appropriately in the Q&A box, as was shared, that we could promote each other through the different initiatives and programs that are, quite frankly, offered to all of us. And we just need to take advantage of that. At this point, I believe that this brings us to the end of our webinar series. Again, I just want to say thank you. Thank you all for joining us today, this morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time zone you are in. This is a constant reminder that this is a global initiative. And I want to once again thank WGO, Millie, and the entire WGO team for having these initiatives, especially during the month of September, which highlights and emphasizes and celebrates women in medicine. So what better time to have our third series of the Women in GI than September, the month that we could celebrate all women in medicine. It's truly an honor for myself to serve as the moderator of this session. I'm originally from Afghanistan, and so I wanted to close with this quote, which basically emphasizes we don't have one leader. The beauty and strength of our movement is that every single one of us here is a leader. And the theme of this entire webinar series was advancing in leadership. And I hope that we were able to, with my excellent friends and colleagues and panelists and speakers, convey to you that collectively we can continue to inspire, empower, build together. And quite frankly, we can be that voice for the voiceless. We can serve as that mentee who's seeking guidance. We can serve as a friend and as a colleague, and certainly emphasizing the importance of why we need women in leadership. We need women in schools. We need women to be able to pursue equitably their education. And again, I really appreciate this series where we're learning together. So with that, I conclude our webinar series. Thank you again for joining us. I really want to emphasize a few key points here, which is that you can access a recording of this webinar series through the WGO website. This email will be linked, the link to this will be emailed to you so you can directly have access. And we also ask you to fill out our survey. This survey is a good way for the WGO and for us to know what are the needs, what are the additional questions, how can we continue to grow and serve on a global community together, and how can we advance all women around the world. So with that, thank you to all of our speakers, my friends, thank you for joining me, and everyone, please have a lovely day or evening.